For generations, the story of civilization has followed a simple sequence. First came survival. Small groups of hunter-gatherers wandered across landscapes shaped by ice and wind, living lightly on the land. Only later, so the narrative goes, did something extraordinary occur. Humans learned to farm. They planted seeds, domesticated animals, and settled in permanent villages. Agriculture created surplus. Surplus created hierarchy. And eventually, out of those villages rose the first monumental architecture. It is a story repeated in textbooks, classrooms, and documentaries across the world. According to this narrative, temples and monuments are products of settled societies. They require organized labor, stable food supplies, and complex social structures. Civilization, in other words, must come first. Only then can stone rise toward the sky. But in the hills of southeastern Anatolia, in what is now southern Turkey, there stands a place that quietly disrupts that sequence. A site older than the pyramids of Egypt, older than Stonehenge, older even than the first known agricultural villages. A place built not by farmers but by people who, according to everything we thought we knew, should not yet have had the ability to build anything monumental at all. And this is where the contradiction begins. What if the earliest monumental architecture in human history was built not after agriculture but before it? What if the temples came first? History does not break easily. But here it bends. In the dry uplands near the modern city of Şanlıurfa, the land rises gently into limestone ridges. Today the landscape appears quiet and almost empty, a rolling plateau dotted with scrub vegetation and scattered farms. But 12,000 years ago, this region was very different. The end of the last ice age had begun to transform the environment. Wild grasses covered the hills. Herds of gazelle, aurochs, and wild sheep moved across the plains. Rivers and seasonal streams carried water through valleys that are now dry. This region lay within what archaeologists call the Fertile Crescent, a broad arc stretching from the Levant through Mesopotamia and into Anatolia. It was here that agriculture would eventually emerge. Here that wheat and barley would first be domesticated. Here that humans would gradually transition from foraging to farming. For decades, scholars believed that monumental construction followed that transition. Once people settled into permanent villages, once food production created stability, communities could organize large labor forces to build temples, walls, and ceremonial structures. But scattered across the ridge north of Şanlıurfa, beneath layers of soil and time, lay something that did not fit that sequence. At first, the site seemed unremarkable. In the 1960s, survey teams passing through the area noted fragments of worked stone on a hill known locally as Göbekli Tepe, Potbelly Hill. The stones appeared to be remnants of an old cemetery or perhaps a ruined Byzantine structure. No one suspected anything deeper. The hill itself was artificial, though no one realized it at the time. Beneath its gentle slope lay thousands of years of buried architecture. It would take decades before the true nature of the site began to emerge. In 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt visited the area while working with the German Archaeological Institute. Schmidt had experience excavating early Neolithic sites in the region. When he examined the scattered stones on the hill, he noticed something unusual. Some of the fragments were clearly carved limestone. Others appeared to be parts of large pillars. But the shapes did not resemble graves. They resembled monuments. Schmidt quickly realized that the site had never been properly investigated. And what lay beneath the hill could be far older than anyone suspected. Excavations began the following year. As archaeologists removed layers of soil, the ground slowly revealed structures unlike anything previously known from that time period. Circular enclosures began to appear. Massive stone pillars emerged from the earth, some more than 5 meters tall and weighing several tons. These pillars were not rough stones. They were carefully shaped. Many were carved into distinctive T-forms, their surfaces smoothed with deliberate precision. Some were decorated with intricate reliefs: foxes, snakes, wild boars, vultures, cranes. Animals moved across the stone surfaces as if frozen in motion. This was not random decoration. This was symbolism carved into limestone more than 11,000 years ago. And this is where the unsettling part begins. Radiocarbon dating of organic material from the site placed the earliest construction phases around 9,600 BCE, nearly 12,000 years ago. At that time, agriculture had not yet been fully established in the region. Permanent farming villages were only beginning to appear elsewhere in the Fertile Crescent. The people who built these structures were still hunter-gatherers. Yet here they were, quarrying massive limestone blocks from nearby bedrock, transporting them across the hillside, erecting pillars weighing up to 20 tons, and arranging them into carefully planned ceremonial spaces. This is not myth. This is stone. The enclosures at Göbekli Tepe follow a striking architectural pattern. Each structure forms a roughly circular or oval ring of tall pillars embedded in stone walls. At the center stand two even larger pillars facing one another, dominating the space. These central pillars rise like silent figures, and in a way they are figures. Closer examination reveals that the T-shaped pillars may represent stylized human forms. Carved arms extend down the sides. Hands rest across the front. In some cases, belts and loincloths are clearly depicted. The pillars are not merely supports for a structure. They are representations, stone beings standing in a ritual space, and the carvings that surround them are equally deliberate. Predators dominate the imagery: lions, snakes, scorpions, vultures, creatures that would have carried symbolic meaning in the worldview of Ice Age hunter-gatherers. The entire site appears to have been a place of gathering, a place of ritual. But here is the question that continues to trouble archaeologists. How did mobile hunter-gatherers organize the labor required to build it? Constructing even one of these enclosures would have required coordinated effort from dozens, perhaps hundreds, of people, quarrying stone with stone tools, transporting pillars across uneven terrain, setting them upright with precision. And this was not done once. Multiple enclosures were built across the hill over centuries. Then something even stranger happened. At several points in its history, the builders deliberately buried the structures they had created. Entire enclosures were filled with soil, stone debris, and animal bones. After being carefully sealed, new enclosures were built nearby. The site was not abandoned. It was intentionally entombed, and archaeologists are still trying to understand why. One interpretation sees Göbekli Tepe as a ritual center, a gathering place where dispersed groups of hunter-gatherers came together periodically. Seasonal festivals may have drawn communities from across the region. Shared ceremonies could have reinforced social bonds and collective identity. If this interpretation is correct, the site may represent one of the earliest known examples of organized religious activity, a sacred landscape built long before cities existed. But there is another possibility that some scholars have begun to consider. What if these rituals did not follow agriculture, but helped create it? Large gatherings require food. Sustaining periodic assemblies of hundreds of people would have demanded reliable supplies of grain and meat. Some researchers suggest that the social pressures of maintaining such gatherings may have encouraged early experiments in cultivation. In other words, agriculture may have emerged not simply as a practical innovation, but as a response to social and ritual demands. The temple may have come before the farm. History does not break easily, but here it bends. And yet, many questions remain unanswered. Only a small fraction of Göbekli Tepe has been excavated. Ground-penetrating radar suggests that dozens of additional enclosures still lie buried beneath the hill. Each season of excavation reveals new carvings, new structures, new clues. But the deeper mystery persists. Why did people who lived by hunting and gathering invest such enormous effort into building monumental architecture? What beliefs motivated them? What stories were told beneath those towering pillars? And why, after centuries of use, did they choose to bury the entire complex beneath layers of earth? Göbekli Tepe stands today as a silent witness to a moment when human societies were undergoing profound transformation. The Ice Age was ending. Landscapes were changing. New forms of social organization were emerging. In that uncertain world, people gathered on a limestone ridge and carved meaning into stone. They raised pillars toward the sky. They created spaces where the living could stand among symbols of animals, spirits, and perhaps ancestors. And then they sealed those spaces beneath the earth. For thousands of years, the hill remained quiet. Wind moved across the plateau. Grass grew above the buried pillars. Civilizations rose and fell across the surrounding lands. Empires came and disappeared. But beneath the soil, the stone circles remained. And when they were finally uncovered again, they forced us to reconsider something fundamental about our past. Perhaps civilization did not begin with farms and villages. Perhaps it began with gatherings, with shared symbols, with the human desire to come together and create meaning beyond survival. Göbekli Tepe does not offer simple answers. Instead, it presents a quiet challenge to the story we thought we understood. The earliest temples may not belong to farmers. They may belong to hunters. And if that is true, then the foundations of civilization may lie not in the first planted seed, but in the first collective act of belief carved into stone.